Hello and welcome to Pro Modelers. One of this month's builds we're going to be doing is the Hasegawa's new Draken. We're going to be doing it as in the F35F version. So we're going to put the side winders underneath there. Basically it looks like a lovely kit, really looking forward to how it goes together. Okay, we've got the cockpit parts all out and cleaned them up. I've put the seat together, which is step 11, just happened to be doing it at the time so I could have a good look and really see what I'm going to do to it. So we've done that as well. We've got the main fuselage parts out, we've cleaned up the sprue marks and everything else like that, so we're all nicely. And what I've done is, obviously on step number, where are we, number 3, something like that, it says about opening up all the holes. Because we're going to do the F-type, we've done the 2 for the sidewinder rails, which are going to be underneath the air intakes. So we've done those, and then the 4 in the middle and the 2 at the front. So make sure you do them now, it'll just make things a lot easier. So we got them cleaned up. The cockpit tub, just here, I've just put the actual little pedals in there as well, which is part number A17. Straightforward. I haven't put any control columns or sticks on yet. I've got them here in a little paper cup, so I don't lose them because they're absolutely minute and look like bits of sprue. Okay, the cockpit colour, a little bit different. Obviously, you know, Swedish nations have different cockpit colours to the standard sort of blacks and greys that normal aircraft has. So they're using the guns colour of 309. That translates into Valero Model Air as, 016, which is, they call it US Dark Green. So we'll just get that wrapped up. Okay, now here's a test because I haven't used the airbrush now in a few days, about 4 days since I last used it. So it'll be interesting to see if we've got any needle blockage or it's jammed. So what I'm going to do is just pop a little bit of airbrush cleaner, just to dribble in there and see what happens. No, we're totally working and it's fine. As I say, sometimes if you've had your airbrush lying around for a little bit and it does jam up, just do that thing, take off your cap, unscrew the back off just like that, and then tap it out and then do it that way, and then you can clean up your needle and away you go. So there we go, we're happy with that. Obviously, because this is the Valero Model Air and it's quite a thin colour, it might be an idea to prime your surfaces first. So what we're going to do, we're just going to tighten up that back collar, it's a little bit loose. Check our flow, everything's okay, and then what we'll do, we'll start on the tub and we're just going to dust over a nice little light spray. If I bring you in a sec, it's a little bit better. So as I say, we're just going to dust over, very very high air pressure, and then cut to air if you double action. Okay, and then back to paint. Do the sides as well, and then you'll know you're all covered. Okay, back to air, drying off. Make sure you get in the sides and from all angles so you don't get any sort of shadowing. But there we go, that's that one done. We can leave that to dry. Obviously, strange again, the instrument panel is green as it's black in colour. Now I'll be able to show you a nice little technique with this shortly that I wanted to show you in previous builds, but because there was no dials you can't do it. But it's a nice little technique for bringing the dials to life. Just remember, when you're spraying this, you know, obviously with thin paint, if you've got that thing where the paint is literally just coming straight off and won't stick to it, you're going to need a primer coat. Or when you're going in, make your air pressure a little bit higher than you normally spray. You can probably hear how high I've got this. And just dust it on and then cut to air, next one goes on, cut to air, so forth, and just keep working at it. Because if you go in there too heavy and just constant paint, you'll flood the area, and before you know it, it's a mess and looking horrible. So we just get in there like that. That one's okay as well. Okay, last thing to do, we've got to do the inside of the cockpit as well. Cut into air, just drying off. And while we're spraying everywhere around here, we can just do this back area, back up there. Doesn't matter if we get any overspray around. So there we go, we've got the top half done and the inside. Okay, so we've got some flat black, just like here on the top, as you can see. Now I've brought you in nice and close so I can show you this. Now what you want to do is pick a nice couple of brushes which you like and you get on with quite well. Now I've got this old Revel brush here, it's one of these funny ones here. I've had this donkey's years, but I quite like it because it's got a very, very thin nib to it and it doesn't hold much paint. Now I'm doing this totally backwards. Normally I have this other way around, but to be able to show you, I'm going to try and paint it the other way around. So it could go horrendously wrong. But basically what we're going to do, we're going to lay some paint down the middle, let the capillary action sort of pull out a little bit, if you know what I mean, and let it work itself around a bit because this is thinned out paint. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. And all we're going to do is build it up in sort of layers. So the capillary action, if you like, zips around and goes around the outside, but obviously in reality it's on the inside, but we need it to go around the outside. Now there's another way you could do this. You could come around with your green paint afterwards, very thin, and let that run around the outside as well, which will obviously give that sharp effect of everything that's going on. So really what we're doing here, we're cheating, but it works, and if it works, it's good enough for me. But a lot of people say, how do you do this? You need a steady hand. Well, if you use thin paint and let it buzz around, now if you can see it here, it's quite thin. Don't know exactly how well you can see it, but it's very thin and you can't really see, you can see the green coming through. But obviously we're on first coat at the moment, and as we build up the layers, we'll come back to it when we've finished off everything else, and we can actually then go round and then touch in any little mistakes we've made, as well as giving it a second coat. Now if you were so inclined, you could obviously mask all this up and go around and do it all and then spray it or hand paint it, whichever way you want to do it. But with me, obviously, because speed is somewhat needed, I need it to be done as quickly and as neatly as possible, and obviously I need to guarantee the finish. So obviously if you're going to be masking, trouble is when you unmask it, you could have technically just wasted your time, because you're going to have to come back and do it again anyway. So we don't want to do that. We need it to be right first time. So by doing it by the brush, just like this, we can see exactly where we're at and away we go. So that one's gone slightly a little bit over the top there, to be honest, so we need to pull that in slightly. But if I just turn around the other side, as you can see, obviously got a little bit of glare, but you can see there how it's all sort of drying to that nice sort of finish that we like. So we're just going to give it another build up of colour, just like that everywhere. And away we go. Now this front one we just need to tidy up, but for the moment we're going to put that to the side and we can carry on with these areas in here. Now because it's on blue tag on the other side, you can literally just stick it down like that usually, and it'll hold there, which gives you a nice sort of stable platform. Now this one, the entire front is black, which is quite nice, because then we can just pop around with our black and be quite generous with it. Okay, then the other one is, to me, is on the upper side. Same thing, we're going to take the paint right over the top and then just let the capillary action make a neat little line across that top area. Then how far does it come down? And then it's this box area of the switches just below. So there again, we'll let the capillary action work all the way around. I know I talk about the capillary action, especially with the glue, but what you're trying to do with all your modelling, or the point I'm trying to make, is let it work for you. Instead of you going around gluing it all, or you going around painting it all, if you can get the paint to do it itself, and to literally work its way around where you're going to have to go anyway. It saves everybody a lot of time. And normally, but if it's quite thin, like the glue's very thin and this paint's quite thin, it works its way around and make a far neater line than you'll ever get with a brush by trying to do it by hand. So this way it's almost it's working for you. It does all the business, and then all you need to do is come around as a rule and normally just darken it up with a little bit of thicker paint to the inside. Obviously you don't go to the outside, because where it pulls to the outside it's going to be darker anyway. So we've got that section done as well. We'll just let that dry, and then next we've got the cockpit. So with this we're just going to take some black on our very thin brush, as we've got, and we're just going to make a little pool like that in each of the dial wells. And as I say, make sure your thin's nice, your paint's nice and thin, and if it's been hanging around a while and it's starting to dry, just throw that away and get yourself a nice bit of thin again, or add some thinners to it. Now we've deliberately left the big one at the back, because obviously we don't want that one done, because we're going to put some clear green in there to give it that effect. But obviously before that, you go in there, if we put green on green you won't see it very well, so we might just put a dab of silver in there first and let that totally dry. Right, the last one we need to do is just this line one running down there. So there we go. Hope you can see that. Say the light's a little bit glary on it, but it gives that nice effect like that. And then what we're going to do, we're going to go around with a little bit of dry brushing just to highlight everywhere, and then we're going to pop back with the tiniest amount of a light wash. Obviously I use my Pro Modelers wash, but you could use anything, and we're just going to put a dab in each of them, and it will give a nice three-dimensional depth to the gauges. And it's a lot better than using decals, because obviously there is decals that could go on this, but trying to get them to fit and all the rest of it isn't very good. They're just the standard black decals anyway, so you know, in a lot of ways we're doing a better job like this. Okay, so this is all now totally dry, so what we're going to do, we've just got some XF19, which is the sky grey, which is a very light grey. Now we've just got a flat brush, which is a number 2 flat. So we're just doing our normal dry brushing technique. So we've moistened the brush with paint, got it all totally off, and then we're going to come back in again with another pass. Okay, so we've got that off, and then what we're going to do, very gently, first of all we're going to pick over some other areas where it doesn't matter. A little bit too much there. Okay, the way to do it is just gently going to brush over the dials. Just to make them come to life a bit like that, just to give them a bit of a grey edge, just that little bit of depth. Now remember, we're not going in there too deep and pushing too hard as up to take the paint off like we've done on other dry brushings to bring back the metal colours. We're literally just doing it to lighten up those panels, just to give them a little bit of depth. And we're just going to run around a few of the edges elsewhere, just like that. So now we've got that lightened up, then obviously we can do the same on the cockpit panel as well. So the same thing, very light. So we're just sort of accentuating the detail a little bit. There we go, sort of like that, to sort of just give it that sort of grey ring around the edges. Now what we're going to do, we were speaking about a moment ago, we're just going to take some of the light Pro Modelers wash, but you could use a little bit of very thin acrylic paint, whatever you want to do. Now give this a good shake. Okay, then what we're going to do is just going to take literally a tiny bit on the brush, just like this, and we're just going to pop and pull a little bit of the grey and the light wash like this into all the little gauges, or would-be gauges, just like so. And then what we'll get, hopefully we'll get, So we just pop it all in there like that. Now as this dries, it will sink, obviously, with the water evaporating out of it, and then hopefully what will happen is it will just sort of highlight around all those gauges, and as you can see it quite nicely going on these three big ones down here already, but as time goes on it will dry, so you get that sort of white back face where in reality it's black, but obviously it's such a small scale you can't see it. So with the white, hopefully it'll bring it to life. Then over here, down on this, the caution panel down here, we're just going to lightly wipe away the top surface so it makes it all stand out just a little bit more in there. But we're going to do the same for the other panels and the side panels and dry brush everywhere, and then we can get it all together. Okay, as you can see, it's all dried down here now. So what we're going to do, just take a cotton bud or a Q-tip, and we're just going to very, very lightly moisten. And then if I show you here, rub off any excess onto your finger. Okay, then we're just going to gently wipe all the instruments over just a little bit like that. Now the reason we do that is, if you can see, it brings all the little needles to life and makes them stand out far, far better than it would do if you didn't. So that's all we do that for. Right, now we've just basically got the little screen in the middle there to take care of. So what we're going to do, we're going to take some clear green, which is the Tamiya X25 in this case. All of it on the end again. Okay, and we're just going to come in. I'm going to dab a bubble just like that. Okay, now we just clean the end off. Then all we're going to do is just push it just round to the edges, just like so, and leave it like that. Now you get a sort of a bulbous look to it, which is quite nice because it'll dry. Then as long as you pull away from the middle, you won't be left with any dips and things going on there. But there we go, so you can see it like that. And then what you could do, just to make it perfect, you know, obviously you're not really going to see it, it's going to be down in the depths of the cockpit, but what you could do is just take a tiniest little bit of thinned black paint and just put a drop around the edge when it dries, and the capillary action will run right the way around, and you'll get a nice ring that sits around the actual tube itself, the screen itself. Okay, so there we have the cockpit all done. It's all ready to be installed. As I say, I've just popped around and done some bits and pieces. Now the white areas there are showing a little bit brighter on the camera than I think they really are, obviously when you have a look at it properly. But you see I've done a little bit of weathering, bit of dry brushing down on this side console, and just filled in a few of the little bits that are going on there. And obviously I put in the control stick and the throttle. So they're all ready to be installed in now. Okay, so now the cockpit's in, basically we can move on and place together. Now this is where we've got two options to do here. The Draken at rest with most modern aircraft, or aircraft of this ilk, when the hydraulics shut down, the hydraulic pressure releases, things like flaps, ailerons, but things like that all tend to droop under the pressure. When the system's obviously powered back up, the pressure rises, they all go back to their neutral positions. It's a great way of making that aircraft and your model look that little bit more by simply dropping the flaps and things like that. So when they are at rest, they do look like they're at rest instead of sat there, perhaps like a lot of sort of die cast things and bits and pieces. So what we do is have a look at your model and see if it's actually worth doing it. Obviously some aircraft, it's far too complex to try and do it by hand, but in most cases a little bit of work you can actually drop your flaps. So this is what we're going to do with this one. So what I've actually done, if you imagine on this side you've got it and it's all moulded straight up, and I've actually cut this side off. So all I've basically done is come along with the craft knife and cut it off. So if we just show you. Now obviously you don't have to follow this step, you can just carry on, forget what I'm about to do for the next sort of 10 minutes or so. All we do, place your blade into the panel line for it and gently pull down. Now you could use a little bit of Dymo tape to put up against it, a ruler, whatever you do, but if you're just making lots of little light passes, just go along. As long as you're following the panel line you'll be fine. We do it like that, a couple like that, and then we're going to come across. I'm just going to follow it all the way out. That's not too bad on this one because obviously it's almost laying flat on the cutting mat. But if you've got a situation where it's up a bit, you don't want to be pushing down because you actually bend and warp the plastic. So if you have got that trouble, put something underneath it to keep it flat. This is almost flat anyway. So what we're going to do is just pop along using our knife. Now, if this was a case where it was a solid one-piece wing, now if you bear with me, if you remember a few weeks back we did the F15, I scored the top with a knife and then the underside with a P-cutter with our scriber, because it makes a gap, and then between the two you can push it down, you get the nice curve over the top, and because we made the groove underneath, it pulls in. Trouble with this is it's hollow, so this is why I've got to completely remove the flap itself. If it's a solid one piece, you don't really have to. Then if you can see in here, we get our white marks. Then what we can do, we can just run our knife along those white marks, and you'll find that the plastic is slightly softer. I'm going to do it this way as well. Just like that, and then we're going to make one more pass. Quite a hard one. Across and down there. Your main point is to remember is to make sure you get into the corner that actually does it, and then you should find you can just bend it backwards and forwards, and then it should ping off like that. You'll get a little bit of plastic which is just off that centre bit, so you just take the file, keep it flat and running it along both sides, and they're nicely cleaned up. Obviously the same then on this flapper on the back. So you're just going to give that a little sand, just like that, to clean it up and take any bits off. So there we go. That was there, and now we're off. So obviously we're going to do the same on the bottom. Okay, so that's the bottom one off as well. So now we've got the four parts that we've actually cut off. And as I say, so now when we come together, we should line up all okay. That's it, trying to find the locating tabs. Bad band, see, raw mail, one's biodegradable. Okay, good for the environment, hopeless for modelling. Right, okay, make sure you get the wing root bands all in there, all okay. And you should have the locating pins just from where we cut, so it'll keep it all steady, and the middle area. Then obviously we've got a bit of a gap going on at the back here, just like that, which we're going to have to take care of in a minute. But what we can actually do now, this part here, we can glue up. So we're just going to run glue everywhere, all the way around it, making sure we've got nice joints at the back, and just taking our time, making it nice and steady. Now if you're using the extra thin as we are, just take your time with it, let it all do its work, and make sure it's totally dry before you attempt to sand it. So we can get that done. We'll do that just in a moment. And then what we're going to do, we're going to be using this stuff. Now if you've never used it before, this is styrene sheet, also known as plasticard. Now it comes in various sort of widths and bits and pieces, and you buy it in a sheet, and literally it's just a, you know, really a couple of quid for quite a large amount. Now it's great for scratch building. Also another little area it's very good for. If you imagine you've built a kit and for some reason you've got a gap. Now normally obviously you sort of jump in with your filler and away you go. But actually if you use styrene sheets, because it's styrene, it's easier to sand down. And obviously it works and dries quicker than filler does. So you could literally poke it into, slot it into gaps, perhaps you've got gaps, and you can laminate it and build it up and use it as a filler. So if you've got a plug or something you need to do, obviously it's great for it. Another thing as well, you can use it for aerials and sort of vanes on top of aircraft and that, because you can get very, very thin ones, which are usually thinner than what you'll get as a kit part on a sheet. So I tend to use them for aerials and antennas and things like that. So it's very, very handy stuff to have. It's available through, you know, many suppliers. I know for a fact in the UK, Relish has got it, Roll, Sprue, everyone like that. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to get those glued together, and we're going to do the same on these tails. And what we're going to do is literally just leave it with the gap for the moment, and then we're going to actually laminate a little bit in there, which I'll show you. Okay, so as you can see, we've got this glued up, it's on, the tail's on as well. or the engine area back here. Now it's not a brilliant fit, or it doesn't appear to be a brilliant fit. It actually is, because it does get slightly wider at the rear. It's just we need to smooth that joint in and make it a nice joint. The other thing I've done is, obviously we've got where you've got the choice of the guns in the wings and not. They're not a brilliant fit. What I've done is I've made the best as I can on the top surface, and then the bottom it's going to need, is going to need some filling and taking care of. So there's things like that. But what I needed to do, I need to get this back end on basically so we can get these bits all covered in. So what we've actually got, well, the quickest area, I need to make 2 of these shapes that actually go on the end here, as you can see, just like that. Now if I bring you in just a touch, and we angle you so you can see what I'm up to. Sorry, never make a good cameraman. Right, so what we've got is the very, very thin plastic card. This is probably 1/2 mil. It's very, you can even see through it. So what we do, we pop it down on the desk just like this. Now I get a couple of bits of blue tack, and we're just going to stick it over it just like this. Now the reason, and then one underneath at the back, the reason for doing this, it stops it moving around, because you find it does tend to slip and all the other bits. So if you put one bit on the bottom and a bit over the top holding it. Then what we do, we take our part that we're going to use, and we're going to use this as a template. Now the bottom is flat, the top is curved. So if you put the flat onto an edge, okay, and push down from the top, you don't want to squash it together. Okay, then you take your knife and basically you're just going to score a little line down in there. Now you won't have to push heavy, because this is pretty thin stuff. It's, you know, a little bit thicker than paper. Then what you should be able to do is, if you gently bend it, and what we do, we just cut this edge a little bit more. That's it, because we don't want it to tear. Okay, then if you just push it slightly, here we go, and give it a wig, a bit of a wiggle, it'll snap off and comes off just like that. And then, all going well, you should find that this part will then make it be a perfect fit for this area on here. Now if anything, we just want it a little bit too big, so obviously when we glue it down, it actually can sand in. But obviously the other thing as well, we can take that bit and bring it over, and then it will actually glue, whoops, it can actually come along and it will glue, and it will cover up this hole. Because obviously now we've dropped the flaps, we just roughly lay it there for a second, which it won't stay there. But to give you an idea, just take a bit of blue tack, okay, and then we can just put that on there. There we go. So it'll go there to cover up that hole, because obviously when we've got our little flapper on coming on here, it's going to droop like that, and without it you're going to see that hole there. So if we take it off, if I show you what I mean, when we come along and this is down, obviously we've got that big hole that's going to show through. So what we can do, we're going to put that on, glue it in place, sand it all in nicely, and then if you look at some pictures, just printed this one off, okay, you see the holes there. Where are we? Just below the finger here. We're going to recreate those holes and put those in, which will be a nice, quick and easy little job. So there we go. We'll do that. Okay, so now we've got these. We've got the 2 smaller ones, and we've done the others, we were saying, just a little bit bigger. Then all we're going to do is take these over, and we're going to pop a little bit of glue down on the top there, just like that. We just bring you in a little bit. Okay, and then we're just going to fit this and slap it down on top quite roughly for the moment, and put that down there like that. Now there is an overhang at the bottom. I don't know how well you can actually see that there, but what will happen is obviously we'll sand that all in when it's all completely dry. So we're going to do the same, and then we're going to do exactly the same for this edge in the hair to fill in this hole here, and we're going to do all 3 sides on here, and then we can put the holes in as it's shown in the photo, and then we can actually then figure out how these are going to sit and how they're going to be in there and all look nice.